Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Yes, indeed. I'm Ashraf Garda. The second half of the afternoon talk show is all about putting a person in the spotlight. Today it's the turn of Clive Barker. And the funny thing, when you mention Clive Barker, is one of the few people, I think, in the country. You don't have to say anything else about him, meaning people know exactly who you're talking about. They also know he's an African Cup of Nations winning coach, and there's no other South African who has that category. Now, I'll tell you what, if you want to call in and say hi to Clive, because it's very much a personality profile interview, of course, do so. 0891104207. You can SMS to 34701 at the cost of R2. Tweet to me, Ashraf Garda. Also comment on my Facebook page. I'll pick it up, and the same on SAFM Radio. We'll do the same right through. Now, particularly, I'm just taking a chance, maybe, just maybe, somebody worked with Clive. That means one of the players listening in would say, well, that's my boss. And if you want to call in, well, that'll be absolutely great. So on the line then, in the spotlight with me is Clive Barker. Clive, good afternoon. Hi.
Hello, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. And am I right in saying, I don't have to say anything else about you, but just say Clive Barker. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, I think.
I'm not quite sure about that, but certainly we have a lot of supporters out there, good and bad and different, but just nice to be on your show to talk to everybody.
Yeah, but is it fair to say that it sounds almost crazy, as long as Bafana doesn't win another Nations Cup tournament, Clive Barker will always be remembered fondly so. The day, and same with Neil Tovey and Lucas Khadeb and all the players that were part of that team, Andre Arons and all that come to mind. When we have another Nations Cup win, and hopefully it'll be in a couple of weeks' time, then you become less important.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We pray for it, because eventually people get tired when they keep comparing with the 1996 side. We don't want that. We just want to say that we have our place in the sun, and we pray that Gordon, Henderson and the boys do it for us. I know they're going to do it. They looked very good last night. I thought they kept the ball better than they have done for a long time. And really, they created a lot of chances and didn't stick one. I had a feeling, though, had they scored at any given time, that they would have gone on to win it. In saying that, I think Gordon would have loved to have gone into this weekend's event with another victory under his belt, but it wasn't meant to be, and I thought they did look good, and I thought they looked as if they were on track to be successful in the AFCON in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I'm sure some of the listeners may want to ask questions around that Bafana performance of last night, but it's certainly not about Bafana that's in the spotlight. It's Clive Barker who's in the spotlight, and it has been in the spotlight, I think, ever since he won that Nations Cup tournament in 1996. What are you coach of Brits now, is that right?
Yes, marvellous. I've been thrown a lifeline and delighted about that. We've started a couple of days ago. It's been fantastic working with Andre Aronson and Paul Johnson. They're both talented young football coaches, and they started initially in the last few days, and I've continued over the last couple. So delighted for another opportunity, and looking forward to the challenge.
You say you've been thrown a lifeline. What does that suggest? That you were sort of unemployed, looking for a job, and just grateful that Wits came in?
Not quite like that, but I'm a Zulu, and of course I thought we had done quite well, and my mandate was to get us into the top 8, and then of course when we got back from at the end of the season, they made a decision to go with another coach, and I didn't really get a look in after that, so I'm delighted to have a challenge like this thrown at me, and I'm really going to give it my best shot, so let's hope it all goes well.
But what is it about football coaching in just about any other career? If you worked in 5 jobs and you got fired 3 times, I mean, that would be a major blight on your CV. It's not so much an issue in coaching, isn't it? Why is that the case?
Well, I think football is always going to be like that. There's only 2 coaches, one that's been hired and the other one that's been fired. So, but you do go in there with you know exactly what's likely to happen. All directors are put under pressure by chairman, and chairman vice versa. They're put under pressure by their friends. And of course it ends up in a scenario that there's only one person that's going to take the blame and be the fall guy, and that'll be the coach in the end. When the side plays well, the players play well. When the side loses, the coach plays badly.
Of course. Well, I see Janusz wants to talk to you. We'll get to him in just a second. Just before that, you being this Nations Cup winning coach, and I made the point earlier, there is nobody else like you at this point in time. What was it like for you as a coach to actually go into a Nations Cup tournament that we hosted. So we're duplicating this, right? And not just performing well and, ifs, whats, and maybes, but actually winning a major tournament. And that happened, as we know, within a couple of years of South Africa actually getting back into international football.
Sure. Look, I'll tell you what happened. Of course, I was at that magnificent afternoon when South Africa played New Zealand in the World Cup. And I sat right behind when Joel Stransky lined up and dropped that fantastic goal. And as he hit it, I knew, I said to myself, this is more pressure now, because I think Hansie at that stage was rolling over some cricket nation. And, of course, now with the rugby having won, and, of course, the majority of supporters in South Africa were football-loving people. And, of course, we had to deliver for them. So I thought to myself, this is extra pressure. But well done, Joel. And of course we went on from there. I was very fortunate that I think it was the first cup that we were eligible to play, or the second one. So I was up against nobody had coached in an AFCON before. So since stupidly, when I was young, I remember I was asked two questions, and I said, this is what South African footballers will do. They will win AFCON the first time they play. And secondly, that they would qualify for the World Cup first time out. And of course they did both of those and went on. But, we are very fortunate, Ashraf. I had such great personalities, such good players. They were icons in themselves. If you look at Lucas Rabedi today, and of course Neil Tovey, and players of that ilk, and you had them all around us, Dr. Kamala. There was no peer. I mean, at any given stage, you could give them the ball, and you knew something would happen. Shoes with shoe, and Philemon Masinga up front. Nobody really liked him except in our technical staff and myself. But he got goal after goal and set things up, and it was just a wonderful time, I think, for football in general. And I think we lost our way a little bit after that, unfortunately.
All right, something completely off track before I get to Janus's test, saying, ask the dog where that name comes from. And, of course, by the dog, he's referring to you, and you know that.
Yes, of course. And who was asking the question?
A person by the name of Ste in Buyani.
Oh, yes, okay, yes. So the dog, of course, you know where it comes from. The shouting and the barking at the side of the bench, and, of course, at the training sessions. I hope that's where it comes from.
Well, it can't be meaning anything else, isn't it? Let's get to the callers. Janus in Cape Town, hi.
Hi, hello, Mr. Barker. You are my favorite coach, South African coach. I remember you brought a lot of enthusiasm to the game. I remember you always, when the goal was scored, you are flying. Remember this? So it was fantastic. You always bring a lot of positivity to the game. And during 1 year away with the national coach, we had the best team. And my question is actually, sir, what happened to our white players? They gone somewhere. I don't know. They emigrate all to England, America. We don't see any white players here, So what happened? I think at the moment we're calling our team a national team of blacks, so because we don't see anybody from different race. Can you tell me what happened with the white players?
All right, we'll get an answer on that one. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Janus. Yeah, carry on.
We were in control of football. And they had a great amateur setup where they had a very good system. I remember Norman Elliott, the best manager and chairman that I would have ever worked with over the years, saying to me, he doesn't have to have a nursery himself because of the fact the whole of KwaZulu-Natal belongs to him. And he had first choice because that's where Durban City were at that stage. It's very similar to what Kaizer Chiefs would have been from the 90s, because they dominated everything, and of course have a system that's tried and tested, and KwaZulu-Natal has been magnificent in sorting it out. So I think there is a reason that I think the white, if you want to say the white footballers fell out of it. It was mainly because we had control of the amateur football, and of course that led to moving into the professional ranks. And I was delighted, if I can put this listener at ease, is that when I've been coaching at Wits, we have a lovely mixture there, if that's what you want to call it. So there are a lot of white players still there and coming through. So it's up that they get to the front. I think the best mixture was no doubt early in the 90s, because you had a very good blend then when you had a European influence in football that was controlled by the European coaches that came here. And then you added, of course, the flair to the township flair to football, which made us different. And that's what, when you look at Ace Manini's and Ace Natsalong and Jomo and quality players like that, the best players maybe arguably in the world at that given time. I just think that they're there. I think the system's got to get all sorted out all over again. And I think if we take it from there, we're going to be really a strong and powerful nation like we are in rugby and cricket.
Okay, so I'm pretty confident about that. We are chatting to Clive Barker. If I simply say the coach of Wits Football Club, they'll say, really? But if I say the Bafana coach of 1996, well, everybody certainly knows that. If you want to stay in touch, call him, say hi to him, ask him that one question you've always wanted to ask him as I put him in the spotlight. Well, you can do that to 0891 104 207. SMS, I'll read that in a minute, 3471 at the cost of R2. You can also tweet to Ashraf Garda as well as SAFM Radio and do the same on Facebook as well. Someone saying Safa, and I think this is interesting from Prince Monkwe. Safa failed to give Clive the accolades he deserves when they failed to remunerate him accordingly. Do you think that's true?
I think it's partly true, and I think, but that's unfair to judge Safa over this whole scenario, because what happened is I really worked for nothing initially. I think I earned the princely sum of 12,500 Rand a month when I was in charge at the beginning, and of course later on Pereira was likely to become coach here in South Africa, and he was given 1.7 million Rand a month. So I guess I was born in the wrong time, but that's okay. What happened is, talking about Norman Elliott again, he said to me, look, he said, do me a favour, go and get yourself a contract. And I said, Norman, I worked for you for a couple of years without a contract. Why must I get a contract with SAFA? And he said, believe me, they're going to squeeze you out. And he said, go and get a contract. And I went up there and I met the hierarchy, and I spoke to Ivan Causa, and they came back to me with a figure. I wanted a 100,000 Rand a month figure. Mm-hmm. And of course, everybody would have said, geez, but that's a huge jump. You're greedy, you're this and that. And of course, I was raided by SARS. They all pulled in there and took my books of my company that I was involved with. And but in the end, it worked out okay. I got my way and I think they might have got their way when they got rid of me. So I think it's 1-1, and I think that's where I'd rather leave it.
Now, I expected some people to ask about the current Bafana team. Tebzo Mashego asking, how does this team compare to the 1996 team? And honestly...
Now, look, that's an unfair thing, because that's one reason I wouldn't ever try and become the coach again, because you'd always be looking over your shoulder. I'd see Eric Tinkler there. I would see Linda Buthelezi. And I would be comparing two like we're going to compare now. I hate comparisons. I know that everybody will say, is Jacques Kallis the best? For me, the best cricketer in the world, because he can bat, bowl, and he can catch the ball better than anybody. So I just think that comparisons, different eras, very, very difficult. Is Ali better than Joe Frazier? There were different eras in any sport, and comparisons. But I just think that in the end, that scenario with Safa, I think I got a feeling that when we played England at Old Trafford, the players went on strike because what had happened, there was problems with payment, and Lucas, I remember walking strongly towards me one day and saying, look, we're not going to play. And I said, what? And he said, because there's things that haven't been sorted out. And I said, you've got to be joking. I said, we're in England here, the pinnacle of just before the World Cup. I said, we've got to play. You can't walk away from this. And I remember them calling me up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And they said to me, the hierarchy of SAFA, where do you stand on this situation? So I said to them, look, always as a football coach, you've got to back the players. If you don't back the players, they're never going to back you. And so I said, I'll go back home tomorrow with them if I've got to go back with the players. And I got a feeling from then on they were waiting for an indifferent run and things like that. And I think that happened. And of course... I was told to move on.
Okay, I'm going to certainly talk to you about that 1998 World Cup that you never went to, and I'd say unfortunately. And I say there's a fan there. But before I do that, let's get to some more calls. KGM in from Cape Town. Hi, KGM.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah,
and good afternoon to the coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashraf,
Yep.
I wrote an article quite a while ago. I think I was very bitter when SAFA abused and ill-treated Clive the way they did. And in that article, I made serious allegations. One of them, Clive has just confirmed. Technically, though, I mean, I wouldn't like to put Clive on the spot because, he's still in the industry. It will be very difficult for him to divulge some of the things, even if there are suspicions from our side. But here's the point. I've always said, you want to tell me that in the whole of the country, a privileged few, Ivan Khoza, Kaiser Motaung, and the likes, are those the only people who can take a football? I know that we're talking about Clive Barker, but I'm saying as a seed. I hear a lot of people, and I'm saying Kaiser and Dr. Khoza and everybody, they've done a good job. But I think we must also acknowledge the fact that there are areas and there are times when the hierarchy that Clive is talking about has put us in hot waters. And I can tell you now, we are going through what we are going through as a country in the soccer fraternity because of decisions like that. If you look at, the ridiculous amount of 100,000 that was requested by Clive Barker those few years ago, and you look at the amount of money that I've been paid to people who didn't even deserve it. Clive Barker, as a South African, we must be ashamed.
Let's get a response. Thanks for that, KGM. I'll get Clive to respond. Whether Ivan Khoza and Kaiser Motaung are just have too much power in South African football. George in Bloemfontein. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good. Go for it, George.
Yes. I just want to get into Clive's psyche about the 1996 team that he had.
Mm-hmm.
He went to what we call out and out specialists, especially in his midfield. He had Dr. Khumalo, Shuz Mushweru, Eric Tikla, and Linda Buthelezi.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And he had the option of taking people like John Moeti, who could do both, and people like Dumisani Ngobe at that time, Thabo Ngomeni. What was your thinking around it? I just want to hear how did he come to that?
All right, great stuff. Let's get a response. Thanks for that call, George. Further calls as we put Clive Barker, the Bafana coach, in the spotlight. Clive, Clive.
When I summed it up, I thought the best thing for us to do is to have the strength and power in the middle of the park, and went with Linda Buthelezi, who would run through a wall for you, and of course Eric Tinkler. He was the same. He could play in concrete and enjoy it. And of course, they were the reason that we were able to get the supply through to the likes of Shoes and Doctor, and certainly Helman and Kaleli when he came on. I like the inference that you said that John Moeti might have been even better than the other two midfield players that went there, but we actually went for strong at the back and able to go forward and comfortable on the board with Mark Fish. Lucas, of course, was always the out-and-out defender. Neil could stroke the ball really well, and of course we had David Nyati, a marvellous left-sided player. The two strengths were in the middle of the park to give the two best players on the field always, which were Shoes and Doctor, a chance to express themselves. And of course we had Mark Williams, a fantastic finisher of set chances set up, and he would have loved to have played last night.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Sean Bartlett and Philemon Masinga. And then of course, as we said, there were other players that could come in there and do equally as good a job. So I thought we had an era that was maybe very, very lucky to have, because as I said, personalities, quality players would play, and really every time they went out there, they lay their lives on winning and do it for South Africa. And then of course to get the only real extra pressure was the question everybody asked me, what role did Dr. Nelson Mandela play? And of course he played the biggest role of the whole lot. So we were in a magnificent time in South Africa's sport industry. And then, of course, we had the best leader of all time in Nelson Mandela.
Now, the point brought up earlier on, Ivan Khoza and the Kaiser Matauns of the world having
I think
too much
they're
power.
magnificent. I think that they've done a hell of a good job. I've got no grouse whether Ivan Khoza liked me individually and or not. But you can't take away for what they've done for the game. I mean, Kaiser Matong was the reason that I got the opportunity because he gave me the call to meet him at Kings Park Rugby Stadium. They were playing that afternoon, and I thought he was after one of our key players at Amazulu called George Durnley. And when I spoke to him, he said the Six Maria, when they had intimated that they would like maybe see me take over and take South Africa or Bafana Bafana a little bit further forward. And I met him up in Joburg, Six Maria with Dr. Olifant, and they gave me the job. I remember receiving the call. I used to sell a product called Puma, and I was in a sports shop out in Finger, and the call came and said that they confirmed my 12,500 Rand appointment, so I was delighted about that.
Wow. Now, having said that, how do you feel? Okay, I'll give you my thoughts. I mean, you're the soccer supporter, and maybe, 3-4 months before the World Cup, 98 World Cup, that is, our coach, my coach, Clive Barker, either resigns or resigns under pressure. So either way, he's out. And we get Philippe Troussier, who's got no real connection with that team, coaches that very first team. And I've always felt, considering we didn't exactly qualify for the next round, even then, it doesn't matter then who, at least it should have been Clive Barker. How do you feel about that fact that you did not coach that team to that very first ever World Cup?
You know, I was the Legends played the other day up in Polokwane, and I was sitting with Mark Fish, and he said to me, we would have gone very close to winning that World Cup had you stayed. And today I regret one thing, that I let down the whole of those, in particular the team more than the country, because the fact is I should have stood up to them. I should have said, no, if you want to fire me, then you're going to have to publicly do it. So I apologize in particularly to the South African players, because when we sit and talk now, we think of what we had, and maybe we could have gone that one step further. I don't know whether we would have been good enough, but what I would have known is that when they sent home two of our players for something had gone wrong on the tour, that would have never happened in my time, because I would have been big enough to sort it in-house and sort the problem. I think that they used it as a scapegoat to say we're trying to show exactly that we have rules and regulations here. I'm happy about that, but I think that had Troussier gone the other route and been on the players' side, I think he would have got more out of them. And maybe because of that, I apologise to the likes of Mark Fish. I should have stuck it out, and I was a bit of a coward and was walking away from the job.
Well, I'm even feeling more angry now, because I think it's true. As I said, as a supporter just listening at that time, that you had sort of stepped down, said, even under the pressure, you'd have stuck it out no matter what. And I've always wondered, what if? I mean, do you think about that yourself? What if?
Yeah, I don't lose too much sleep over it now, because it's all gone, and I'm only thankful for the time that we did have there together, because it was fantastic for 4 years. It was amazing, the actual result. We played Czechoslovakia and in Saudi Arabia, and the ball went to the far post, and Philemon Masinga got up magnificently, and he could have gone for goal himself, but he cut it back. And Helman Mkaleli was on the goal line, literally 2 meters out, and he went to side-foot it, and it kicked that awkwardly, and he missed the ball just about completely. Now, had he rolled that over, we would have gone to the semi-final of the Confederations Cup. We had qualified for the World Cup, had won the African Cup of Nations, had won the Four Nations 3 times in a row, and this was the very first time that the result was, it could have gone either way, but we should have won. And had we had won, we would have been automatic into the semi-finals. I don't think they would have had any leg stand on then to ask me to go. So
all right,
maybe it was that single game that stands out.
That fine line, right? But I mean, just quickly, because we're on to news time now. Did you ever get an apology from an administrator to say, Clive, we were wrong to have let you go?
Yeah, I think they have done that. There's been guys who have backed us, and and you don't look for little things like that, and life goes on. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot more hardships than we've got, and I just think we must be thankful for really the good times. The only thing is, I think we allowed the rot to start in SAFA, because had we gone through that period, I always remember, because the director of coachings and different always would want to back, let's go the German way, let's go, and I would argue that, and I would say, but if we copy Germany, we can never beat them, and if we copy Norway, we can never beat them, but if we copy South Africa, we can beat anybody.
Indeed. Okay, lots more. We chat to Clive Barker as I put him in the spotlight, the coach of the Bafana 1996 African Cup of Nations winning team, and also guided the team to the World Cup itself. Before, in fact, he then stepped on just a few months before the actual World Cup. 3:30 time now for the news headlines. Darshan, if any team wants a coach to take over and their team in the last minute, well, maybe Clive Barker's available. You never really know. By the way, we were just coming up to, as well, the talk shop this evening at 7 o'clock, amongst other things. What about budgeting for 2013? So don't miss that with Masachaba at 7. Also putting the spotlight on FET colleges as well. Clive Barker with me, the man in the spotlight. Clive, I'll pick out a couple of things. So, okay, your thoughts in terms of success. If you reflect on your career, and overall you've been successful, why do you think you have been successful?
Why it has been successful? I think mainly because I was given opportunities to work with players that were able to be improved. I always think that coaching is about, you get two sides of the coin. You get where you can be the likes of Sundowns, you can buy success. Or go the other way through academies and through different teams. But I was always fortunate that I had good competitive teams that I was able, I think, to get the best out of them. And when you looked at Durban City, were hugely successful with 2 league titles and a cup final against Kaizer Chiefs. And then, of course, arguably the best team of all time, which was, and of course Kaizer Chiefs supporters will phone in about this, and a lot of Pirates, was Bushbucks. I'm talking about the Bushbucks with Professor Ungwabani.
Yes, your Bushbucks.
Mark Mangena, Calvin Peterson.
But what about you? I mean, you're being kind in saying you've had great players, and you have, right? But I mean, some of it has had to be because of you. A good leader who's able to mold them together. What are the qualities you have, if you reflect on your life, to say, well, actually, these are the qualities I have had, and that's allowed me to mold these players?
Yeah, I think just the perception of also people say to me, most of them, when they talk and they say, I'm a good motivator, I would like to be thought of as a better tactician. And then the motivation comes after that. So you've got to have both, because you can't just go there and jump up and down in a box like and perform and shout at players and hope to get results. I think you've got to be a little bit more clinical when you analyse who you're playing for or against, who's going to be the big players. And so I just think that the one thing that always bugs me a little bit is the fact is when people say, oh, you're only a good motivator. And I would think that that's not the way it is in football. I was given good opportunities. I dealt with characters and the managers, the chairmen that I worked with. I was very fortunate, and I was able to get, I think, maximum out of average players and maybe maximum out of good players that became very good players. I hate the word great. Messi's great. Maradona's great. Ace was great. Lawrence Schillen was great. Those were the type of the players I thought were really, really good.
Okay, just some comments from people. Enzo Coppola saying, hi Ashraf, great show. What does Clive think about the state of the municipal grounds at grassroots level in KwaZulu-Natal?
Shocking. And really, funny enough, I was doing a coaching thing for the under-13s at Build It. Les Pillay runs a terrific show down in Durban, and he always takes me on as many of these over the weekend. When Amazulu went playing, or the Saturday or the Sunday, I would go there either or. And really, I had supper with one of the hierarchy from the ANC, and he said to me, why don't you get a company? And he was 100% correct, because, you know, what irks me is that you could go into Mount Freya, Kumbo, in the Eastern Cape when we're down there, Umtata, and there are really great infrastructures for such good quality grounds, and nobody looks after the facility. Now, there can be reasons for that. A, there's not enough money to back up what you're doing. Two, there isn't the personnel to do it. There's not maybe, but I don't know. I can't buy into both of those. I'm just mentioning them. But I just generally think that, yes, the grounds in KwaZulu-Natal shocking, and they were pristine. And there's no reason that they can't be pristine right now. And I think it's something we should attend to.
All right. So another question. I mean, some people asking whether you're too old to coach. Don't even worry about that one. That's but the more important one for now is what advice comes from Sib himself. What advice can Clive Barker can you give to the class of 2013 to the Nations Cup team?
Yeah, firstly, you're representing the greatest country in the world, so you have pressure. Two, you've got a top-class coach and a top-class technical team to back up, so that we're not going to lose out on that. We've got the best idea, just about arguably in the world. They've played on them on a regular basis, so they would know exactly what Moses Mabida's like. So there's no real reason that our boys can't go out there and do it, because I think they've got the physiques, they've got the quality, they've got everything backing them up. All they need to do now is really to relax, but to target games. A lot of people don't like to target games because if it doesn't come off, then you say, why did you put the players under the extra time of pressure? But I think they have to receive the responsibility of saying, we're playing for South Africa, we're in South Africa, we've got to make it happen for us, and the only way to do it is to make sure when we play Cape Verde that we go out there and we get a result, so we've got something to build on. And I think if you look at the rugby team when Australia played South Africa and at Newlands, and it was important, South Africa got the result. When we had to play Cameroon, we got the result.
In that first game,
so
yeah.
I think it's important to go out there and beat them and to be able to have something to fall back on.
And would you then set a target for the team up front in terms of saying, take every game as it comes, or actually target is to win the Nations Cup? What would work from a coaching point of view?
For me, I would only go one way, and the target is to win the AFCON. Nothing else can be accepted, and I think Gordon is big enough to realise that himself. And of course, he may give them every opportunity. But he's gone in there. He knows exactly the pressures and things like that. And there's only one result, and is that we have to win.
All right, interesting. Only one result that matters. Couple of other things about you. I mean, we know many things. You're called a dog. You're this motivator. But what are you misunderstood about? I mean, what do you find you always have to correct people about when they engage? The
one I've just mentioned, that I'm a better motivator than tactician. I would much rather be say I'm a better tactician. Than motivator. Yeah.
Okay, so you have to correct that very often. What, however, away from what we know about you, what are the things that you'd like to share with us about your personality? And I don't mean coaching, just as a person.
Well, there's a few things. I'm very lucky to have the family I've got. I'm very lucky to have 5 of the greatest grandchildren of all time, and of course, I got a printout of a few things that I thought that you might ask me, and one was, of course, what one book would you recommend? And of course, the only one that they would recommend would be Shadow the Sheepdog, written by Enid Blyton. And if anybody can read that to grandchildren, you'll see the reaction you get. And of course, Jock of the Bushveld by Sir Percy Fitzpatrick, and those are the ones that certainly get to me, because whenever they come on holiday, that's the first thing they say, "Where's Jock?" And they'll give it to me. And we'll
so it's not about turning them into footballers, right? Some other comments. Lemmy is saying Clive Barker was simply a patriotic coach, born at the right time and coached at the appropriate time of our struggle for freedom and rights. And there's another one coming from, let me just see. Barker's remarks and inputs are balanced and matured. How I appreciate him. You have my support. You indeed are adored by me. Now, here's another one. Clive, if given another chance on Bafana, how long can it take for you to build our national team again? That's probably the most important question of the lot. Would you take it?
No, I wouldn't, as I said to you, because I'd be looking over my shoulder the whole time. But if I can give any help I'd only too pleased to help anybody who's in that situation.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Don't take this world too seriously. And of course, the sun will come up the following day, no matter what the result is. So the players that go out there in the next couple of days, really get into it and enjoy it, because if they're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to win. Another thing is to the technical staff is to let the team play off the cuff now and again. I mean, I've noticed any great teams in the world, I always find that if you allow them, if you look at Barcelona, we'll take them as the argument. They play off the cuff more than any other team. If I watch them, and I've been made a living out the game for 35 years, I couldn't tell you sometimes what tactics they were. If you looked at Henry when he was hot for Arsenal, he would come off the left-hand side, he would come off the right-hand side, he would drop deep, he would come forward. And so I would say to the side that's about to play, take a few chances, because only good sides do that, and we can
because I remember you saying in that Nations Cup, the final that is against Tunisia, to say, give the ball to Dr. Khumalo and let him do a bit of a shimmy in that first second, just to get the crowd on his side. Is that right? I mean, that's what you said. It
was nearly the right one, but it was actually against Germany.
Was it against Germany? Okay.
It was just before the World Cup, and not the World Cup, the AFCON, and I did the team talk and left Doctor to the last, and I said, Doc, the reason I haven't spoken to you is because only your granny, only your mother, only your girlfriend believes that we can win here tonight. So the first time you get the ball, you've got to ignite this entire crowd, because they don't believe we can win. And as the ball came to him, Muller went to close him down, and of course he stuck the ball right through Muller's foot or feet, and went round him and put his foot on the ball. And of course that got the Germans upset. And of course the next player dropped his shoulder and, of course, knocked Doctor over. But the roar from the crowd, we had taken the ascendancy away from the Germans from the beginning. And I'll never forget right at the end when Doctor went into a mazy run and went diagonally into the box, and he drew the big central defenders of Germany with him. And the next thing, he backheeled the ball, and it fell to Zayn Musa, who hit the ball really well. And the keeper got down and made a great save, and we would have won comfortably that night. And I remember Bertie Fuchs, who was in charge of Germany, as he walked off the field, he said to me, I have never seen a German side turned inside out like this evening.
I remember that game.
We got some recommendation to be able to make the side play, and they were fabulous. But it was the team, it was the country, and the earlier listener said it was at the right time.
Indeed. Now, an autobiography? I mean, have you written one? I can't remember.
No, but a lot of people have spoken about it, and I've got two sons who are one
in the business,
takes photographs and writes articles, and the other one, of course, is a director of shooting movies. And of course they want to do something, so I'm not quite sure how that'll all end up.
I think probably an autobiography, maybe even a movie as well. All those things very, very, very possible. Who's the South African that you most admire outside of Nelson Mandela? I mean, at the moment, current South African in action, not necessarily a politician, that you really admire.
Oh, you got me on the back foot on that. I think if I had to, I would like to spend time with Desmond Tutu, maybe after, of course, the great Nelson Mandela. That would be my first choice by far.
And if you had to meet the President Zuma, that is, what would you put on the agenda?
Very happy for the inmates and all his friends that he's got in Kindle, which is where I stay, not far from. But don't spend any more money. Let's just change it now and let's share it out somewhere.
We'll see if he listens to you, right? What about, I mean, a good quote that you remember that you can share with us?
I just think that everybody's got the right example to follow, because he's possibly certainly the greatest South African sportsman, and that's Gary Player. And I think the one that he always used to love is, of course, the harder you practice, the luckier you get. And I really think that works out for you, because you can have all the talent in the world. Messi doesn't go out there and stand around with all that talent. He really puts himself out, and so he really works hard. So I think it's an advantage to have the talent initially, but if you don't do the hard work with it, believe you're not getting anywhere.
Okay, and lastly, just in 10 seconds, the finest player that you have coached?
Dr. Kamala by far, I think.
I didn't expect you to say anything else. Thanks so much for your time, Clive Barker. Thanks for being a part of the show and allowing us to put you in the spotlight, indeed.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank
Clive,
you to the listeners.
There you are. Clive Barker, Bafana coach, 1996, African Cup of Nations winning coach. And I tell you what, I would love to say that I interview Gordon Ingerson in a month's time and say, Gordon Ingerson, Bafana, 2013 Nations Cup winning coach. It may just happen. Just by the way, the SABC2 soapy Mubango looking for new talent. Venda and English-speaking children, that's for males only between the ages of 7 and 12. And Zulu, Sotho and English-speaking teenagers, that's male and female between the ages of 7 to 21 years old, can audition on the 12th of January at Baseline. That's number 10 Henry Ngumalo Street from 8 to 5 p.m. Here's a number to dial, 011 719 4308. 011 719 4308. If you're stuck, just call me, Ashraf at safm.co.za. .co.za.